The unheeded warning. Commander Zorex limped across the gleaming floor of the Galactic Hegemony's High Council chamber, his artificial leg whirring softly with each step. The cybernetic implant where his left eye once sat hummed as it adjusted to the chamber's bright lights. His weathered gray-scaled skin bore the marks of countless battles fought across 17 star systems. 3 decades of military service had earned him the right to speak before the council, though he doubted they would listen. The chamber fell silent as Zorex reached the center platform. Above him, 12 council members peered down from their elevated positions, their expressions ranging from mild curiosity to unconcealed disdain. Commander Zorex, Grand Admiral Vexus announced, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. You requested this audience with unusual urgency. The council acknowledges your distinguished service record and grants you the floor. Zorex stood straighter, ignoring the phantom pain in his missing limbs. Honorable Council, I come before you today with a warning of grave importance. Our intelligence suggests that the hegemony intends to expand into the Sol system, specifically targeting the third planet, Earth. Your concern is noted, Commander, replied Vexus, exchanging glances with the other council members. But planetary acquisitions fall squarely within our mandate of galactic expansion. My concern is not with the expansion itself, Zorex clarified, his voice growing firmer. It is with our grave underestimation of the inhabitants of Earth, humans, as they call themselves. I have encountered them firsthand during reconnaissance missions and border skirmishes. They are unlike any species we have incorporated into the hegemony. General Crixus, the youngest council member and a rising star in the hegemony military, leaned forward. Commander, our intelligence reports classify these humans as a pre-FTL civilization with rudimentary technology. They have barely managed interplanetary travel within their own system. What possible threat could they pose to the might of the hegemony? Zorex activated his wrist projector, displaying footage from his final mission, the one that had cost him his eye and leg. The hologram showed human soldiers moving with unexpected precision through the ruins of an outpost on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Despite being outgunned and facing superior hegemony technology, the humans were adapting in real time, using the environment and improvised weapons with devastating effectiveness. This was recorded 3 solar cycles ago, when my reconnaissance team encountered a human exploratory force. We outnumbered them 3-1. We had superior weapons, armor, and tactical support. Yet, of my team of 12, only 3 of us returned. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. With respect, Commander, interjected Science Minister Thelax, one isolated incident hardly constitutes a pattern. It is not isolated, Zorex responded, displaying additional footage from other encounters. Humans possess something I've never witnessed in any species across the 17 systems I've fought in. They have an unparalleled ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Their tactics evolve not just between battles, but during them. Zorex's cybernetic eye glowed brighter as his passion grew. They fight with a ferocity born not just of self-preservation, but of protecting their home and their kind. And most dangerous of all, they learn at an exponential rate. Admiral Vexus waved a dismissive hand. Commander, your experience is valued, but your judgment may be clouded by your injuries. The hegemony has incorporated over 300 planetary civilizations into our domain. Some resisted initially, yet all eventually recognized the benefits of our rule. The humans will not be like the others, Zorex insisted. If we invade with our standard protocols, we will face devastating losses. At minimum, we should adapt our approach, perhaps diplomatic integration rather than military subjugation. General Crixus laughed, a sound that echoed harshly through the chamber. Diplomatic integration for a species that has not even unified its own planet. They still fight among themselves over resources and ideologies. Such primitive beings require a firm hand, not diplomatic pleasantries. Zorex felt his patience wearing thin. My recommendation is to either pursue diplomatic contact or leave Earth alone entirely. Their solar system has minimal strategic value compared to the potential cost of invasion. The chamber fell silent again, but this time with tension rather than respect. Admiral Vexus leaned forward, his voice cold. "Commander Zorex, while your service record grants you the right to speak, it does not grant you the authority to dictate hegemony policy. The Council has already approved preliminary plans for the incorporation of the Sol system. Your concerns will be noted in the official record, but the operation will proceed as scheduled." Zorex stood rigid, his cybernetic implants humming louder as his vital signs spiked. "Then I formally request to be reinstated to active duty and assigned to the Earth operation. If you will not heed my warning, at least allow me to help mitigate the damage." Several council members exchanged glances before Admiral Vexus nodded. "Request granted, Commander. You will serve as tactical advisor to General Crixus, who will lead the operation. Perhaps your first-hand experience will indeed prove valuable." As Zorex exited the chamber, General Crixus caught up to him in the corridor. "You've embarrassed yourself today, Commander," he hissed. "These humans are nothing more than another primitive species to be brought under our enlightened rule." Zorex met the general's gaze unflinchingly. "Pride comes before the fall, General. I only hope your realization comes before too many of our soldiers pay the price." 3 months later, aboard the hegemony warship Inevitable Conquest, General Crixus reviewed the final invasion plans with his command staff. The massive vessel hung in orbit around Pluto, hidden from Earth's detection systems, but close enough to launch the first wave of the invasion force. "Our first objective will be their orbital defenses and satellite networks," Crixus explained, gesturing to the holographic display of Earth's orbit. "Primitive systems, but we will eliminate them to ensure communication blackouts across their planet." Commander Zorex, standing at the back of the briefing room, finally spoke. "The humans have demonstrated remarkable resilience to communication disruptions. During the Eurobot incident, when we jammed their comms, they reverted to pre-established protocols with minimal disruption to their operations." Crixus barely glanced in Zorex's direction. "Noted, Commander. But primitive backup systems will hardly save them from our primary assault forces. The humans refer to it as degraded operations capability." Zorex continued, undeterred. "They train extensively for worst-case scenarios. Do not expect panic when their communications fail." Crixus's jaw tightened visibly. "Your pessimism is unwelcome, Commander. This operation has been planned meticulously based on comprehensive intelligence. Intelligence gathered by observers who have never engaged humans in combat," Zorex countered. "Enough." Crixus slammed a fist onto the table. "You are here as an advisor, not to undermine command authority. The invasion proceeds in 12 hours. First-wave vessels will target their major military installations simultaneously. Second-wave forces will secure their governing centers. The humans will have no choice but to surrender within days." As the command staff filed out, Captain Nexera, Crixus' second-in-command, approached Zorex. Unlike her superior, she seemed genuinely interested in his insights. "Commander, I'd value your perspective on what we might expect from human ground forces," she said quietly. Zorex activated his wrist projector, displaying footage of human military training exercises captured by hegemony surveillance drones. "Notice how they train in all environments: desert, Arctic, forest, urban. They adapt their tactics to the terrain rather than attempting to overcome it." "And this," he said, switching to footage of human special forces conducting hostage rescue operations, "shows their ability to make split-second decisions with incomplete information." Nexera watched intently. "Impressive for primitives. But surely our technological advantage." "Technology is a multiplier of force, not a guarantee of victory," Zorex interrupted. "The humans understand this better than most species I've encountered. They've repeatedly overcome technological disadvantages throughout their history." "What would you recommend then?" Nexera asked. "A measured approach, limited engagement zones, and most importantly, be prepared to adapt when your initial strategies fail, because they will." Nexera nodded thoughtfully. I'll keep that in mind, Commander. On Earth, in the underground complex of the United Earth Defense Command, General Maya Chen studied the latest data from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Something had triggered the quantum fluctuation sensors near Pluto, something massive. Analysis confirms it, General, reported Colonel Jackson. The energy signature matches nothing in our database, but its magnitude suggests an artificial source. We're dealing with a starship, possibly multiple, of unknown origin. General Chen's expression remained calm, though her mind raced through the implications. Humanity had suspected they weren't alone in the galaxy, but direct contact, potentially hostile contact, had arrived sooner than anyone had expected. Implement first contact protocols, she ordered. Alert all UED forces worldwide. Bring orbital defense platforms to ready status, but maintain passive scanning only. And get me the Secretary General. The Security Council needs to convene immediately. As her staff rushed to carry out her orders, Chen studied the holographic display of the solar system. Humanity had been preparing for this possibility for decades. Theoretical defense strategies against technologically superior extraterrestrial threats, unified planetary defense initiatives, and classified technological developments that had accelerated after the mysterious encounter on Europa 3 years ago. What the aliens couldn't know was that humanity had recovered technology from that encounter, technology they had been reverse engineering ever since. The recovered alien ship and bodies had provided insights that had advanced human technology by decades in specific areas. Colonel Jackson, Chen called. Activate Project Phoenix. It's time to see if our adaptations to their technology actually work. Yes, General. The Phoenix squadrons are being prepped now. Chen allowed herself a grim smile. If the aliens were coming with hostile intent, they would soon discover that humanity was not the easy target they might have expected. Aboard the inevitable Conquest, alarm sirens blared as the first wave of hegemony vessels prepared to enter Earth's solar system. Commander Zorex stood on the observation deck, watching as the sleek attack ships launched from the carrier's bays. Despite all his warnings, despite all his efforts, the invasion was proceeding exactly according to Crixus's flawed plan. As the ships accelerated toward Earth, Zorex felt a cold certainty in his core. The hegemony was about to learn a costly lesson in underestimating humanity. He only hoped that enough of his people would survive to learn from it. The first reports from the advanced scout ships came in faster than expected. Command, Scout Leader reports unusual activity in Earth orbit. Their defensive satellites appear more numerous and advanced than our intelligence indicated. General Crixus dismissed the concern with a wave. Expected deviations from intelligence are within acceptable parameters. Commence the operation. Zorex watched the tactical display as the first wave of hegemony ships entered the inner solar system, accelerating toward Earth with overwhelming confidence and firepower. He keyed his personal recorder, speaking softly. The first engagement with humanity begins. May the stars forgive our arrogance. The price of arrogance. The command bridge of the inevitable Conquest had fallen silent. General Crixus stared at the tactical display in disbelief as the icons representing the first wave of hegemony attack vessels blinked out one after another. What should have been a swift, overwhelming victory had turned into a disaster within hours. How? Crixus finally broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. How is this possible? Commander Zorex stood at the back of the bridge, his cybernetic eye recording everything. He had warned them, but even he hadn't anticipated the extent of humanity's capabilities. Status report, Crixus demanded, regaining his composure. Captain Nexera stepped forward, her professional demeanor strained. First wave losses currently at 78%, General. The humans deployed previously undetected orbital defense platforms, with weapons technology that appears similar to our own. Similar to our own. Crixus repeated incredulously. That's impossible. They're a pre-FTL civilization. Nevertheless, Nexera continued, the energy signatures match hegemony pulse cannon technology, albeit modified. and their targeting systems anticipated our evasive algorithms with disturbing accuracy. Zorex moved closer to the tactical display. "The Europa incident," he said quietly. "They must have recovered technology from my team's vessels and reverse-engineered it." Crixus turned on him, eyes blazing. "You failed to mention this possibility in your warnings, Commander. I told you they learn and adapt at an exponential rate." Zorex replied evenly. "The evidence was in my report, the one you dismissed as the ramblings of a battle-scarred veteran." Before Crixus could respond, the tactical officer called out, "General, multiple fast-moving objects approaching from Earth. Configuration unknown." The bridge view screen activated, showing a swarm of smaller craft rising from Earth's atmosphere. Unlike the orbital defense platforms, these were clearly human-designed, but they moved with impossible speed and agility. "What are we looking at?" Crixus demanded. "Analysis suggests fighter craft," Nexera replied, studying her console. "But they're generating energy fields that shouldn't be possible with their level of technology." "Project Phoenix," Zorex murmured, recalling intercepted communications. "They mentioned this during the Europa incident. I included it in my supplementary reports. The human fighters engaged the remaining hegemony first-wave vessels with devastating effectiveness. They seemed to anticipate every maneuver, countering tactics that had served the hegemony for centuries. "Recall the second wave," Zorex urged. "Regroup and reassess before we commit more forces." For once, Crixus didn't argue. "Send the recall signal." All vessels returned to staging positions. As the surviving hegemony ships retreated, Zorex studied the human fighters with a mixture of dread and admiration. This was exactly the scenario he had feared: humanity taking hegemony technology and improving upon it in ways the hegemony itself had never considered. In the war room of the United Earth Defense Command, General Chen watched the retreat of the alien forces with cautious satisfaction. "Project Phoenix exceeded expectations," Colonel Jackson reported. "Adaptation of the alien shield technology proved effective against their own weapon systems." Chen nodded. "And casualties?" 17 pilots lost," Jackson replied grimly. "But considering what we were up against, it's a miracle it wasn't worse." Chen studied the holographic display showing the aliens regrouping near Pluto. "They'll be back," she said quietly. "And they'll adapt to our adaptations. This was just the opening move in a very long game." "The Security Council is requesting your assessment and recommendations," Jackson said. Chen considered for a moment. "Tell them we've won the first battle, but not the war. We need to accelerate production of Phoenix units and deploy the ground defense systems. And most importantly, we need to prepare for their return with new tactics." As her staff moved to carry out her orders, Chen focused on the largest alien vessel, the apparent command ship that had remained outside the battle zone. "What are you planning now?" she murmured to herself. Aboard the inevitable Conquest, the mood was somber as General Crixus convened an emergency strategy session. The command staff sat in stunned silence as the battle analysis played out on the central display. "Our standard tactical protocols were completely ineffective," Nexera summarized. "The humans anticipated our attack patterns with uncanny accuracy." "Because they've studied us," Zorex interjected. "The Europa incident gave them a preview of our capabilities, and they've spent years preparing accordingly." Crixus paced the length of the conference table. "We still maintain overwhelming numerical and technological superiority. This setback changes nothing." "It changes everything," Zorex countered. "We must report to the Council and request additional resources if you insist on continuing this invasion." Crixus stopped pacing, his expression hardening. "And admit failure. Give the humans time to further prepare." "No, Commander. We will adapt our strategy and strike again immediately." "With what?" Nexera asked. "The first wave is decimated, and the second wave isn't equipped for the level of resistance we're facing." "Then we'll change the rules of engagement," Crixus declared. "If the humans want to play at war, we'll show them what real war looks like. Prepare the atmospheric dispersal units. A chill ran through Zorex. Atmospheric dispersal. You're proposing chemical warfare against a civilian population. I'm proposing victory by any means necessary. Crixus snapped. The Council expects results, not excuses. The Council expects adherence to the Galactic Conventions, Zorex reminded him. Chemical warfare against civilian populations is explicitly prohibited. These are not civilians of the hegemony, Crixus argued. They are unincorporated primitives resisting our rightful expansion. The command staff exchanged uncomfortable glances. Even among the career military officers, there were lines few were willing to cross. I cannot in good conscience support this course of action, Zorex stated firmly, and I believe many others feel the same. Crix's eyes narrowed. Are you advocating for insubordination, Commander? I'm advocating for honor, Zorex replied. Something the hegemony was founded on, before generals like you began placing personal glory above principle. The tension in the room was palpable. Then Captain Nexera stood. General, I respectfully request that we consult with the Council before proceeding with atmospheric dispersal tactics. Several other officers murmured agreement. Crixus looked around the room, realizing he was losing control of his command staff. Very well, he conceded through gritted teeth. We will consult with the Council, but in the meantime, prepare conventional forces for a coordinated ground assault. We will establish beachheads on multiple continents simultaneously. As the command staff filed out, Zorex remained behind. General, I urge you to reconsider. Ground combat plays directly to human strengths. Their entire military history is built on dominating challenging terrains and repelling technologically superior invaders. Your warnings have been noted, Commander, Crixus replied coldly. Now either assist with the operation planning or remove yourself from my command center. With a respectful nod, Zorex turned and left, his mind racing. The general was leading them to disaster, and the Council was too distant to intervene in time. He would need to take matters into his own hands. 2 days later, the second wave of the hegemony invasion force descended toward Earth's surface. Unlike the first wave, these ships employed advanced stealth technology, avoiding the orbital defense grid and penetrating deep into the atmosphere before being detected. General Chen received the reports with growing concern. Multiple landing zones confirmed across all continents, her aide reported. They're establishing beachheads in remote areas, deserts, mountains, forests. Smart, Chen acknowledged. They're avoiding population centers and establishing forward operating bases in challenging terrain. She studied the tactical map, noting the dispersed pattern of landings. They're trying to stretch our resources thin by forcing us to respond globally. Phoenix squadrons are engaging where possible, Colonel Jackson reported, but their numbers are still limited. Chen nodded grimly. Activate all Special Forces units. Priority is intelligence gathering and asymmetric warfare. We need to understand their ground tactics before committing to major engagements. Around the world, highly trained human special operations teams moved into position, observing the alien forces as they established their beachheads. The aliens were methodical, deploying prefabricated defensive structures and energy shields around their landing zones. What the hegemony forces couldn't know was that every movement, every deployment, every communication frequency was being meticulously recorded and analyzed. Within hours, patterns emerged, weaknesses were identified, and countermeasures developed. Commander Zorex moved discreetly through the lower decks of the inevitable conquest, making his way to the communication center. Using his command clearance, he entered the secure transmission room and locked the door behind him. He knew what he was about to do would be considered treason by some, but loyalty to the hegemony's ideals sometimes required disobeying its current leadership. He established a direct quantum link to the High Council, bypassing the normal chain of command. Commander Zorex to High Council, he began, his voice steady despite the risk he was taking. I am transmitting under emergency protocols to report grave violations of galactic conventions and strategic misconduct by General Crixus in the Earth Incorporation operation. He proceeded to detail the catastrophic losses of the first wave, Crixus's consideration of chemical warfare, and the ill-conceived ground invasion currently underway. The humans are proving to be exactly the adversary I warned you about, he continued. They've adapted our own technology against us and are demonstrating tactical flexibility that our standard protocols cannot counter. He paused, knowing his next words would seal his fate one way or another. I formally request the Council recall General Crixus and appoint alternative leadership for this operation. Furthermore, I strongly urge the Council to consider diplomatic alternatives to military incorporation. The cost in hegemony lives already exceeds any potential benefit from this world's resources. Just as he finished his transmission, the door to the communications room slid open. General Crixus stood there, flanked by security officers, his expression cold with fury. "Commander Zorex," he said quietly, "you are hereby relieved of duty and charged with treason against the hegemony." Zorex straightened, making no move to resist as the security officers approached. "The Council will receive my transmission," he said simply. "The truth cannot be suppressed forever." "The truth," Crixus spat, "is that you have undermined a critical military operation and endangered countless hegemony lives with your interference." "No, General," Zorex replied calmly. "You endangered those lives when you ignored my warnings and proceeded with an invasion you were unprepared for." As the security officers led him away, Zorex felt a strange sense of peace. He had done what he could to prevent further bloodshed. Now it was up to the Council and the humans. On Earth, the tide had begun to turn. The initial hegemony beachheads had been contained, with human forces employing guerrilla tactics to isolate and degrade the alien positions. The Phoenix fighters had gained air superiority over most landing zones, cutting off supply and reinforcement options. In the UEDC war room, General Chen received the latest intelligence with growing confidence. "Their command structure is rigid," she observed, studying the battle reports. "They're following predetermined protocols, even when those protocols are failing. They're not adapting quickly enough. We've also detected communications disruptions between their ground forces and their command ship," Colonel Jackson added. "Something's happening up there." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Internal conflict?" "Possibly. Our analysts noted distinct factions in their communications even before the invasion began. Some voices advocated caution, others aggression." "Interesting," Chen mused. "We might be able to exploit that division." "What about the new weapon systems?" "Ready for deployment," Jackson confirmed. "The reverse-engineered energy shields have been successfully miniaturized for infantry use, and the pulse rifles are in mass production." Chen nodded. "Then it's time for Phase 3. We stop playing defense and start pushing them back." In the detention cell aboard the inevitable conquest, Commander Zorex sat in meditation, interrupted only by the arrival of Captain Nexera. "The Council has received your transmission," she informed him quietly. "They've dispatched Admiral Zenith to assess the situation." Zorex's eye widened slightly. Admiral Zenith was known for her strict adherence to hegemony principles and intolerance for strategic incompetence. "And General Crixus?" he asked. "Proceeding with the ground invasion, against increasingly heavy resistance," Nexera replied. "The humans have deployed new weapons, adaptations of our own technology. We're taking significant losses. Has the General requested reinforcements?" Nexera hesitated. "No. He believes it would be seen as an admission of failure." Zorex sighed. "Pride will be the death of us all." A distant rumble shook the ship, causing the lights to flicker. "What was that?" Zorex asked, rising to his feet. "The humans have launched a counteroffensive," Nexera explained, a hint of admiration in her voice. "They've adapted faster than anyone thought possible. Some of their weapons now surpass our own." Another, stronger impact shook the vessel. "You should return to your post," Zorex advised. "The ship will need its best officers." Nexera nodded, but lingered at the door. "For what it's worth," Commander, I believe you were right all along. After she left, Zorex returned to his meditation. The outcome was now beyond his control, but he took some comfort in knowing that the Council would soon witness the truth of his warnings firsthand. The arrival of Admiral Zenith's vessel near Pluto coincided with the human counteroffensive reaching its peak. Earth's forces had pushed the hegemony ground troops back to their landing zones, and the newly equipped Phoenix squadrons were systematically neutralizing the alien ships attempting to extract their stranded forces. Aboard the inevitable conquest, General Crixus faced the holographic presence of Admiral Zenith with barely concealed resentment. "Admiral, your arrival is unexpected," he managed, offering the traditional hegemony salute. "My arrival is the direct result of Commander Zorex's emergency transmission," Zenith replied coldly. "A transmission that appears to be validated by the catastrophic losses I'm observing." "Temporary setbacks," Crixus insisted. "The humans employed unexpected tactics, but we are adapting." "The humans have destroyed 60% of your invasion force," Zenith interrupted. "They have adapted our technology and improved upon it within a remarkably short time frame. And you were considering chemical warfare in violation of the galactic conventions. These are not temporary setbacks, General. This is abject failure." Crixus bristled. "With respect, Admiral, your command is hereby revoked," Zenith stated flatly. "You will surrender operational control to me immediately and prepare to answer to the Council for your actions." As security officers loyal to the Admiral entered the bridge, Crixus looked around desperately for support. Finding none, his command staff averted their eyes, some with barely concealed relief on their faces. "Release Commander Zorex," Admiral Zenith ordered. "I require his insights on the human capabilities immediately." 1 week later, Commander Zorex stood beside Admiral Zenith on the observation deck of her flagship, the Judicial Balance, watching as the last hegemony vessels departed Earth's solar system under the watchful eyes of the human defense forces. "The ceasefire agreement is holding," Zenith noted. "The humans have allowed our remaining ground forces to evacuate without incident. They understand the concept of honor," Zorex replied. "They could have pressed their advantage, but chose restraint instead." Zenith turned to face him. "The Council has reviewed your original assessments of human capabilities. They were remarkably prescient." "Not prescient," Zorex corrected. "Simply observant. I had encountered humans before and recognized something in them that reminded me of our own ancestors. Determination, resourcefulness, and fierce independence. The Council has voted to designate Earth and the Sol system as a sovereign territory, exempt from incorporation efforts," Zenith informed him. "Furthermore, they wish to establish diplomatic relations. They've requested that you serve as the first ambassador." Zorex blinked in surprise. "Ambassador? I'm a military officer, not a diplomat." "You are uniquely qualified," Zenith insisted. "You understand and respect the humans in a way few others do. And they may be more inclined to trust someone who tried to prevent the invasion." Zorex gazed out at the blue-green planet growing smaller in the distance. "The humans will be wary of any hegemony representative, and with good reason." "True," Zenith acknowledged. "But they must also recognize that the hegemony is not monolithic. There are those, like yourself, who advocated for peaceful contact from the beginning." After a moment's consideration, Zorex nodded. "I will accept the appointment with one condition: that the hegemony approach these negotiations as equals, not as a superior power granting concessions." "Agreed," Zenith said. "The recent conflict has made it abundantly clear that humans are not to be underestimated. The Council has learned a costly but valuable lesson in humility." As the Judicial Balance prepared to jump to FTL, carrying the survivors of the failed invasion back to hegemony space, Zorex made a final entry in his personal log. "I warned them about the humans, but even I underestimated their potential. In just days, they adapted technology that took the hegemony centuries to develop. In mere hours, they deciphered tactical doctrines we've relied on for generations. We came as conquerors and nearly left as the conquered." The hegemony has never faced a species like humanity before, and now, thankfully, we may never have to face them as enemies again. Instead, we have the opportunity to welcome them as partners in the greater galactic community. Perhaps someday, the humans will venture beyond their solar system on their own terms, carrying with them that unique spark I recognized during our first encounter, that remarkable combination of curiosity, determination, and adaptability that nearly brought the mighty hegemony to its knees. And when that day comes, I hope we will be wise enough to greet them as friends rather than subjects. For in humanity, the galaxy may have found its greatest teachers of humility, and its greatest champions of resilience. In the vastness of space, the ships of two civilizations parted ways, one ancient and powerful, but newly humbled, the other young and vibrant, but forever changed by first contact. The conflict had ended, but a new chapter in galactic history had just begun.